You have a special connection to the Netherlands. In your autobiography, you write about your first healthy girlfriend, and you mention that it was a Dutch girl, and you called her a healthy Dutch revolutionary. Now, I was wondering, how did you manage to sneak a Dutch, weed-smoking, revolutionary teenage girl onto the grounds of your strict boarding school?
Well, it's an interesting story. But 50 years ago, this was my first love, and I think we met when I was 15. No, when we were both around about 15, and we were together for 4 or 5 years, and we haven't seen each other before today. So stories like that, she's been correct. We had a lovely lunch together. She's been telling me, reminding me.
Again today for the first
I met her again today. I'm not going to tell her where she is in the audience, but she happens to be in the audience.
She's here! This is an amazing story for the first time in 50 years.
We recognized each other, which is very nice. And she still looks as beautiful as she did 50 years ago. So it was very, very nice seeing her and her children.
This is a romantic, adventurous story, of course, with a great ending. Your time at boarding school was not so romantic and wonderful. And if you read about your life, I'd say, but correct me also always if I'm wrong, the fact that you were dyslexic formed a very important part of your early childhood and being in school. I was wondering how often, because that was not recognized as a condition at the time, how often at school were you beaten or disciplined for not getting things right?
I think it's pretty disgraceful what happened in British boarding schools in those days. I mean, we were beaten all the time. I mean, it was just, a completely accepted sort of thing that went on. And you were sent away to school at 7.5, I remember my first night in boarding school throwing up and as on the pillow, and the matron coming and making me clean it all up. I mean, it was pretty tough. But somehow we've survived.
Was it especially tough for you, being unable to read in the conventional?
Yeah, so because I was dyslexic, obviously I got punished more than people who weren't dyslexic, because nobody had ever heard of dyslexia in those days, so you were just stupid. The way they tried to get you to perform was by beating you quite a lot.
Did it ever make you doubt yourself?
I think the good thing was it made me rebel. So, I quit school at 15 and went and in a sense got my own education, and actually found that in the real world I could cope very well because I was interested in what was going on. When I quit school, the Vietnamese War was going on, and we set up a magazine to campaign against the Vietnamese War. My Dutch correspondent, who happened to be my girlfriend, she wrote about the provost and interviewed the provost here in Holland.
This is the ultimate irony, of course, for a child who has difficulty reading, to leave school, has no training in journalism, writing, or whatever, and starts a magazine that becomes so intensely popular.
So I learned the art of delegation because I was dyslexic, which was, so I had to find people who could write and find people who were better than me. And that's held me in the best stead ever since. I mean, I've surrounded myself with wonderful people and given them a lot of freedom, and 99% of the times they're better than me. So giving them that freedom has meant our companies have done a lot better.
So you could say actually that at an early age, because you were so inventive, you were forced to trust other people, to delegate, and learn how to feel to trust others.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, and be inventive. I mean, so the Vietnamese War was going on, and if you're writing about the Vietnamese War, you've got to have a journalist in Vietnam. And so I was 16, and there was a young lad called Julian Mannion who was also 16, but we couldn't afford his ticket to Vietnam. We couldn't afford to pay him anything. So we went to the local newspaper, the Daily Mirror, and said, we're sending the 60-year-old to Vietnam. He could write for you as well, and if you could pay for the ticket, and you can pay for his salary. And they did that. So we got a free journalist in Vietnam. He went on to becoming Britain's best-known war correspondent, but having started off at the tender age of 16 as a war correspondent in Vietnam.